Welcome back to Drinking in the Duat, where we take a deep dive into the myths, legends, and shared human experiences that transcend time and culture. I'm your host, M. Dylan Blair, and in today's episode, we're exploring one of the most universal themes in mythology, the Great Flood. Raised Roman Catholic, I had heard of the flood story from the Christian Bible before I was even in kindergarten, but it wasn't until I was a little older that I learned there was also a massive flood in the ancient Sumerian Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest living work of literature to date. It was like a watershed moment, a surprise Pikachu face meme in real life. In my youthful ignorance, I had no idea that other cultures reported the same thing. One of the downsides of ascribing to a certain religious belief system is the boxing of the mind. The notion that it was entirely possible that reality existed outside the realm of which we had been taught. If other cultures reported the same thing, what did that say about the Christian flood myth itself? And more importantly, what about the finer details, like the characters? Certainly, the man could not exist in every place on the continent at the same time. He wasn't Santa Claus. And with this light bulb illuminating, I realized that there was probably more to the story than what was originally told to us as children. By now, many of us are familiar with the flood stories of Gilgamesh and Noah. But did you know that the myths of catastrophic floods exist across nearly every culture in the world? From the deltas of India to the plateaus of indigenous America, flood myths are everywhere. They don't just talk about water, it's more than that. They carry lessons about renewal, survival, and humanity's relationship with the cosmos. So let's start with a question. Why do so many cultures have flood myths? Is it because floods are such a visceral experience, or do they represent something deeper in the human psyche? Today, we'll explore these questions and a whole lot more. So grab your favorite drink and a fluffy towel. This is going to be a wet ride. Welcome to Drinking in the Duat, a podcast where the ancient meets the eternal, and the myths of yesterday reveal the truths of today. From the mysteries of the underworld to the whispers of forgotten gods, we delve into the myths, legends, and beliefs that shaped humanity's spirit. So pour yourself a drink and join us on a journey through time, faith, and the stories that bind us all. I hope you're ready. To kick things off, I want to share a thought experiment. Imagine waking up one day to find the world submerged. Think Kevin Costner's Waterworld or the Star Wars planet Camino. Land gone, structures destroyed, lives regrettably lost. What would you do? What lessons would you take from such an event? Flood myths often begin with these very same questions. The flood archetype is a cornerstone of world mythology, but why? At its heart, a flood story is about transformation. Floods wipe the slate clean, destroy the old, and make way for the new. They're about endings and beginnings, death and rebirth. As with any good analysis, a little background is beneficial. So to orient ourselves on our journey, we'll begin by making sure we go over the four main elements that flood myths appear to contain. The first would be a warning or prophecy. This often comes from a divine figure, a wise elder, or even an animal. Regardless of its origin, this foretelling sets the stage for survival and redemption. The second is the concept of divine intervention. Time and time again, the flood is almost always seen as an act of the gods, responding to human hubris, wickedness, or imbalance. It's a source of judgment, of retribution, and there is no time to make amends, at least not for now. The third common element includes a chosen survivor. Whether it's Noah, Manu, or Nu, this figure is tasked with preserving life, often carrying seeds, animals, or other symbols. It's all about ensuring that humanity survives, that we keep moving forward. In the wake of the devastation and the receding of the tides, we find the last concept of symbolic renewal. The survivors get the opportunity to start fresh. Just like how the methodical planning of Noah and other chosen show our perseverance as human beings, the fresh start reflects the universal human desire to rebuild and move forward, no matter the devastation. Each of these four elements reflect a shared human need to make sense of chaos and change. Flood myths remind us that even in destruction, there is hope and renewal. To begin, let's consider the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest recorded stories from ancient Mesopotamia, dated to around 2100 BCE. Its flood narrative closely parallels later biblical accounts, suggesting that shared experiences of flooding along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers influenced these myths. Some say that the Black Sea deluge around 5600 BCE might be the inspiration for these myths in the region. A quick note. Across the series, we will use BCE, before Common Era, and CE, Common Era, exclusively, both for historical and listener universality, as well as personal and professional preferences as a religious scholar. With that out of the way, let's continue. Now, floods are natural disasters that leave a lasting impact. No one is arguing that. In fact, they can turn a bustling civilization into a wasteland within hours. Ancient societies, especially agrarian ones, depended on rivers and seasonal rains. Not enough water meant famine. Too much spelt disaster. This delicate balance likely contributed to the perception of floods as both means of divine wrath as well as divine blessing. For instance, the Nile's annual flooding in ancient Egypt was revered as a source of life, bringing fertility to the land and enabling agriculture. However, when the floods were too extreme or failed entirely, the resulting devastation challenged the people's faith in the divine order and the pharaoh's ability to maintain harmony. Such events were often seen as disruptions to the cosmic balance, potentially tied to divine displeasure. No matter the culture, water is associated with cleansing, purification, and renewal. Carl Jung, a renowned Swiss psychologist we mentioned last week, described floods as symbols of the subconscious. It's that part of us lurking beneath the surface, a symbol of emotional transformation and growth. Think about it this way. In life, don't we sometimes need to let go of what no longer serves us to make room for something better? Flood myths take that idea to a cosmic level, showing us how humanity reemerges from the chaos stronger and wiser. Much like the water that comprises these floods, these changebringers are not unique to one region or time period. They happen everywhere. Think of Hurricane Katrina from 2004 or the Yangtze River flooding in 2020. Early humans, observing the destructive power of water on the rig, wove these experiences into their stories. After all, it was the natural thing to do. But floods also symbolize something deeper. They're indicative of the fragility of life and the resilience of the human spirit. One doesn't have to look far to see the realities of what devastation looks like around the world. A quick flip to the news and we're presented with horrifying images of natural disasters. Something even more prevalent right now with the west coast of the United States and what they've been currently dealing with as thousands of people reel from such tragedies. Let me ask you this. If you were faced with the end of the world as you knew it, what would you choose to save? What would you rebuild? It's a tough question, one that strikes us to our very core, to that vulnerable part of us where fear lives. These are the questions flood myths ask of us, and they are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. Water, as a force of nature, has always inspired awe and reverence. In its gentler forms, it nourishes and is the bringer and sustainer of life. But as floods, it transforms into a power capable of immense destruction. Across the globe, people have always lived near water, from our earliest civilizations like Harappa, Sumeria, or even those who inhabited the Huanghe or Nile River. We know, at a fundamental level, rivers, seas, and lakes carry both blessings and dangers. Now, the universality of flood myths likely stems from these shared human experiences, where the unpredictable nature of water has become synonymous with larger cosmic forces. These myths are found in every corner of the world, from the tropical islands of the Pacific to the frigid landscapes of Scandinavia. But these myths are not mere tales of disaster. They are layered narratives that speak to a culture's values, their fears, and even their aspirations. They often explore themes of morality, resilience, and the relationship between humans and the divine. They illuminate a profound truth. The sacred often reveals itself through the natural world. To truly appreciate the depth and diversity of these stories, let's embark on a journey through time and across continents, exploring how different cultures interpret the flood archetype. So let's pack our bags, and when we come back from our first break, we'll take a look at some of these myths firsthand. I hope you're ready. Hey there, listeners. Just taking a quick pause to thank you for joining us on Drinking in the Duat. If you're enjoying the journey so far, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps us bring more mythological tales to light. And if you've got a story or a question you'd like us to explore, reach out at show@drinkingintheduat.com or connect with us on social media. Now, let's dive back into the mythos. Welcome back. Prior to our first break, we broke down the basic elements that all flood myths contain. In the second segment, we're going to dive straight into the flood myth itself. Now, to accomplish this massive tsunami-sized task, we'll focus on 6 diverse locations around the globe, each with their own respective religions and cultures. The first stop will be a place of diverse landscapes, resilient people, and the mother of religions herself, India. As we travel together, imagine a land where time itself is seen as an endless cycle, with destruction as an integral part of renewal. This story, the tale of Manu, is a part of the Matsya Purana and likely dates back to the early Vedic period, around 1500 to 500 BCE, when oral traditions began to form and were later codified in sacred texts. Often regarded as the first man and progenitor of humanity in Hindu mythology, Manu holds a role similar to Adam in the Abrahamic traditions. He is considered the father of mankind, a lawgiver, and a figure of divine wisdom, tasked with preserving life and maintaining cosmic order. According to the tale in the Matsya Purana, Manu, a devout and virtuous king, was performing penance one day and offering prayers by the Saraswati River when a small fish swam into his hands, pleading for protection. The fish, seemingly ordinary, but ultimately undeniably divine, warned Manu of a catastrophic flood that would soon engulf the world. An honorable man, Manu agreed to care for the small fish. As days passed, the fish grew rapidly, outgrowing every container and even the river itself. When Manu released it into the ocean, the fish revealed its divine nature as one of the Trimurti, the 3 principal deities of Hinduism. In the Mahabharata, the fish is identified as Brahma, while in the Puranas, it is considered an incarnation of Vishnu. Regardless of the deity's identity, Manu received his divine task and accepted it. Build a large boat, gather seeds, plants, and summon the 7 great sages to ensure the preservation of life on earth. When the deluge arrived, waters rose and swallowed the land. Manu climbed aboard the boat, tethering it to the horn of the great fish, who guided the vessel safely through the raging currents. For days, the boats floated against the vast, featureless ocean, shielded from the storm by Vishnu's divine presence. When the waters finally receded, the boat came to rest atop the Malaya Mountains, often interpreted as the Western Ghats or a mythical range. With the earth renewed, Manu sowed the seeds of life, allowing plants, animals, and humanity to flourish once again. This act marked the beginning of a new cosmic cycle. The story of Manu reflects the importance of dharma, or righteous duty, as well as humanity's responsibility to safeguard and restore the natural order. It also underscores the cyclical nature of time in Hindu cosmology, where creation, destruction, and renewal are all interconnected. Could this cyclical view of time explain why flood myths resonate so deeply across generations? Hindu cosmology teaches us that time is not linear, but rather an eternal cycle of creation and destruction. The flood in this myth is just one chapter in a much larger story of cosmic renewal, something we'll hear time and time again on our journey. From India, let's travel next to ancient China, where resilience and ingenuity take center stage. This time, the story likely reflects a historical memory of large-scale flooding events, such as those of the Yellow River during the Shah dynasty, a moment we place around 2000 to 1600 BCE, when flood control techniques and irrigation were becoming essential to society. In this story, we move from divine warnings to human determination, reflecting a different facet of flood mythology. Yu's tale begins with his father, Gun, who sought to control the floodwaters that ravaged the land. Gun attempted to stem the tide by building large dikes and dams, but despite his efforts, these methods repeatedly failed. The the floodwaters, relentless and unpredictable, continued to overwhelm his defenses, devastating villages and farmlands. Gun's failures demonstrated that brute force alone could not tame nature's power. So when Yu inherited the challenge, he took a different approach. Rather than trying to block the water's flow, Yu focused on understanding and working within the natural landscape. He devised an innovative system of channels and canals to redirect the floodwaters safely into rivers, lakes, and seas. Yu's approach emphasized harmony with nature, using its forces to humanity's advantage rather than attempting to subdue them. His task was monumental and required years of tireless labor, 13 in fact. Yu personally led the effort, traversing mountains, valleys, and plains to map out the terrain and plan the network of waterways. Along the way, he encountered numerous obstacles, including unyielding terrain and the sheer scale of the floodwaters. Yet Yu's dedication never wavered. Legend holds that during his work, Yu passed his home 3 times, but never stopped to rest or see his family. His sole focus was to complete his mission. Through perseverance, ingenuity, and an intimate understanding of the land, Yu succeeded where others had failed. His system of channels and canals not only mitigated the immediate crisis, but also laid the foundation for China's early flood control systems. These innovations would influence irrigation and water management practices for generations, contributing to the agricultural stability that supported the rise of the Chinese civilization. Yu's story highlights the ingenuity and resilience of early Chinese society, reflecting a deep connection between myth and societal values. Unlike many other flood myths which center on divine intervention, Yu's tale emphasizes humanity's ability to adapt, innovate, and overcome challenges through both determination and cooperation. His work not only tamed the floods, but also symbolized the importance of harmony between humanity and nature. Scholars suggest that the myth of Yu the Great may reflect historical memories of large-scale flooding in ancient China, particularly the Yellow River floods. Known as China's sorrow, the Yellow River has long been both a source of life and a cause of destruction. The irrigation systems developed to address these floods stand as a testament to the resourcefulness and foresight of early Chinese engineers, further connecting Yu's legend to real historical achievements. Through this tale, we see how myth and history intertwine to celebrate not just survival, but also the ingenuity that allows societies to thrive in the face of overwhelming adversity. Sometimes survival, though, it requires immediate action, a lesson we find as we cross the oceans to the Americas, where flood myths are deeply rooted in the land and the spirits that guide it. These stories may reflect environmental changes experienced during the late Puebloan period, roughly 1100 to 1300 CE, when migrations and climatic shifts shaped the cultural memory of indigenous peoples. Among these cultures, flood myths often serve as moral and spiritual lessons tied to survival and harmony. For the Choctaw people, the Great Flood was a punishment for wickedness. A lone hero survives by climbing a tall tree or floating on a raft, symbolizing the importance of moral integrity. Here, water is both a destroyer and a cleanser, wiping away corruption to allow for a fresh start, an idea deeply intertwined with Choctaw beliefs about maintaining balance with the natural world. The Hopi people tell of floods that coincide with migrations, often seen as tests of spiritual readiness and communal unity. Their myths describe sacred teachings that guide survival, such as prophecies from elders or messages from katsinas, spiritual beings who connect the physical and divine realms. In these stories, survival depends not only on practical wisdom, but also on adherence to spiritual principles, once again emphasizing harmony within the community and with nature. These flood myths reflect the deep relationship between indigenous peoples and their landscapes. While the floods are destructive, they are also part of a natural cycle that reinforces the importance of living in balance. They remind us of humanity's moral and spiritual obligations to the earth and one another, linking cosmic events with ethical guidance. Such stories highlight the multifaceted nature of flood myths while connecting them to the cultural and environmental history of the Americas. Next, we'll journey to Africa, a continent where animals frequently play pivotal roles in bridging the gap between humanity and the divine. African flood myths, often passed down orally over millennia, encode memories of seasonal flooding events in regions like the Nile River Basin and the Rift Valley Lakes, essential waterways that nurtured early agricultural societies and laid the groundwork for some of humanity's first civilizations. These myths emphasize harmony with all living beings as the key to survival, reflecting a worldview deeply rooted in interconnectedness and balance. One such story comes from the Kawaya people of East Africa, where humanity's disregard for divine commands brings about a devastating flood. As the waters rise, a chameleon emerges as an unlikely hero, serving as a divine messenger to guide the survivors to safety. The chameleon's role is both practical and deeply symbolic, representing qualities such as wisdom, adaptability, and the reminder that even the smallest creatures have significant roles in the grand order of existence. Through its actions, the chameleon reinforces the importance of listening to divine guidance and respecting the natural world, a lesson for humanity to maintain balance in times of chaos. Animals often take center stage in African flood myths, acting as intermediaries between the divine and the human world. For example, in other East African traditions, birds are depicted as carriers of sacred messages, their movements forewarning impending danger or signaling hope. These stories not only highlight the sacred role of animals in maintaining equilibrium, but also underscore humanity's dependence on the natural world to help us survive and thrive. Such narratives reveal a profound belief in the interconnectedness of all living things, where the fate of one part of the ecosystem is tied to the well-being of the whole. Moreover, these flood myths echo the lived realities of ancient agricultural communities whose lives were shaped by those seasonal floods. The Nile River, for instance, brought life-sustaining nutrients and water to the land through its reliable annual flooding, enabling the surrounding civilization to thrive. This predictability allowed ancient Egyptians to develop a stable agricultural system and deeply interconnected spiritual practices tied to the river's cyclical rhythms. Such dualities, where nature provides abundance yet demands respect, are woven into African storytelling, reflecting both the blessings and the responsibilities that living in harmony with nature entails. Throughout these stories, we see a recurring theme: unity between humans, animals, and the environment. Survival and renewal are only possible when all three parts of the ecosystem work together in harmony. This perspective remains a timeless lesson, reminding us of the enduring need for cooperation, respect, and balance in our relationship with the natural world. Hey there, fearless travelers of the underworld. Let's take a quick detour from the mysteries of the Duat to make sure you're still in the loop for all things drinking in the Duat. Did you know we've launched a Substack? That's right. By signing up, you'll get exclusive updates, insights into upcoming episodes, and even sneak peeks at behind-the-scenes content delivered straight to your inbox. Think of it as your own personal scroll of divine knowledge. Substack subscribers also get first access to exciting announcements like new merch drops, special events, or maybe even a few surprises we're keeping under wraps for now. Oh, and did I mention it's free to join? Head to mdylanblair.substack.com to subscribe today. And if you're loving the show, consider supporting us on Substack's premium tier for even more perks and exclusive content. Your support keeps this journey alive. All right, back to the mysteries at hand. Who knows, this next revelation might just inspire your next Substack comment thread. But flood tales aren't just isolated to mainland regions. If anything, they're just as prevalent in island civilizations, where water defines every aspect of life. So to further this point, let's sail to the Pacific Islands, where the vast expanse of oceans embody both peril and salvation, testing the mettle of those who dared to traverse its waves. Among the most captivating myths of this region is the story of Nu, a central figure in Hawaiian mythology. His tale likely reflects the oral traditions of early Polynesian settlers, extraordinary navigators who began exploring and settling the vast Pacific Islands between 1000 BCE and 500 CE. These settlers ventured into the unknown, armed with unparalleled mastery of celestial navigation, reading the stars, winds, and ocean currents with precision. Their resilience and ingenuity ensured their survival and allowed them to establish thriving communities across one of the most remote regions of the world. In Hawaiian tradition, Nu is chosen by the god Kane to build an ark, a sacred vessel to preserve life during a catastrophic flood sent to cleanse the world of corruption. As the floodwaters rise and consume the land, Nu and those aboard the ark are guided to safely by Kane's divine intervention. When the waters recede, Nu offers sacrifices in gratitude to the gods, embodying humility and reverence for divine forces. His actions reinforce the themes of renewal and the sacred responsibility to honor the divine after surviving overwhelming hardship. This myth resonates deeply with universal themes found in the flood stories across the various cultures, particularly in its parallels to the biblical tale of Noah. Both narratives involve a divinely ordained flood, a construction of a vessel to safeguard life, and sacrifices of gratitude upon survival. Such similarities raise intriguing questions. Did these stories arise independently as reflections of shared human experiences with floods and survival? Or were they shaped by cultural exchanges through ancient migration patterns that span continents and oceans? Polynesian oral traditions reveal a profound connection between humanity and the natural world, emphasizing harmony with the environment as essential to survival. In addition to the Hawaiian tale of Nu, similar flood myths appear across the Pacific. In some traditions, floods are linked to the wrath of gods, angered by human transgressions, while in others, they are natural cycles that mark the beginning of a new life. These narratives reinforce the Polynesian worldview, where humanity's survival is intimately tied to an understanding of and respect for the forces of nature. As we delve deeper into these myths, they transcend their cultural origins to offer universal insights into the human condition. The tale of Nu, like that of Noah, reminds us of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of nature's overwhelming power and the enduring importance of gratitude, faith, and reverence for the divine. These lessons remain as relevant today as they were in the time of early Polynesian voyagers, who understood that survival depends not just on courage, but on a harmonious relationship with the natural world. The last myth we'll explore today is a fan favorite, the Norse. Renowned for its epic sagas and vivid imagery of gods, giants, and cosmic battles, they need no introduction. The last stop on our journey takes us to the frigid, rugged landscapes of Scandinavia, where the Norse envisioned a world shaped by cycles of destruction and renewal. Central to their apocalyptic narrative is Ragnarok, the prophecy of the end of days, which foretells the ultimate clash between the gods and the forces of chaos. While fire and battle dominate much of the tale, the flood that follows plays a crucial role in the rebirth of the world, ensuring that life begins anew even after catastrophic annihilation. These myths, likely formalized during the Viking Age, commonly dated to about 800 to 1100 CE, reflected deep awareness of nature's harsh cycles, long, unforgiving winters, fleeting summers, and the relentless struggle for survival. Yet scholars believe these themes may have originated even earlier during the Germanic Iron Age, as oral traditions passed down through generations. In Norse culture, myths were more than entertainment. They offered explanations for life's hardships, providing comfort and meaning in the face of inevitable destruction that nature often brought. At the culmination of Ragnarok, fire consumes the world, and gods like Odin, Thor, and Loki meet their fates in battle. But the story does not end with fiery destruction. Following the chaos, the earth is submerged by a great flood that washes away the remnants of the old world. From the watery abyss rises a cleansed and fertile land, ready to support new life. Two human survivors, Leif and Leifrazr, whose names translate to life and eager for life, emerge from their hiding place in Yggdrasil, the world tree, to repopulate the earth. Their survival embodies humanity's resilience and, once again, determination, these themes that keep resonating across time and every culture that we look at. The flood at the end of Ragnarok is far more than a dramatic conclusion to the apocalypse. It serves as a bridge, marking the transition from chaos to order and from death to rebirth. The cycle of obliteration and regeneration mirrors universal human experiences of loss and renewal, echoing time and time again the cycles of nature that Norse people understood so intimately. Just as winter inevitably gives way to spring, destruction begets renewal. Beyond its cultural context, the Norse flood links their mythos to a broader tapestry of flood myths worldwide. Like the other stories we've explored, it emphasizes that even in the face of total destruction, life finds a way to endure. In this narrative, humanity soldiers on, hope survives, and the promise of a new beginning rises from the depths of despair. The tale of Ragnarok reminds us that endings are not truly final. They're transitions, opportunities for growth, and the seeds of renewal. Through the mythology, the Norse invite us to embrace cycles of change as an essential part of existence, urging us to find hope even in life's darkest moments. Flood myths are more than just stories about water. They're reflections of cultural anxieties, environmental challenges, and spiritual beliefs. What's more, they often arise in regions prone to flooding, showing how people make sense of natural disasters. But they also speak to something deeper, the need for renewal and the belief that destruction can pave way for a better future. Last week on the show, we mentioned how the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the darkest parts of ourself that we force to submit and disappear. But he didn't just stop there. He also worked with the knowledge that we, as human beings, have passed along through the ages, through our DNA itself. Jung theorized that myths like the Great Flood represent aspects of the collective unconscious, a shared set of archetypes embedded in human culture. Water, in this context, is a symbol of the subconscious, emotions, and renewal. A flood represents an overwhelming force of chaos that clears away the old and paves way for transformation and growth. Think about how this concept plays out in your own life. Have you ever faced a moment of emotional turmoil that felt almost like you were being swept away by a tide? Often, we emerge from such experiences transformed, with new insights about ourselves and the world, be it good or bad. Myths mirror this process, using floods as metaphors for the overwhelming yet undeniable cleansing forces of life. For example, the Noah story and others like it emphasize themes of redemption and second chances. What does it say about humanity that we repeatedly tell ourselves stories where we survive terrible destruction and rebuild at great cost? Perhaps these tales are less about the divine and more about the human spirit, our resilience in the face of overwhelming odds, a skill that's of always great importance. While the symbolism of flood myths is profound, many also have roots in historical events. In case you didn't know, geologists and historians alike have pointed to glacial melting at the end of the last ice age at around 1,200,000 years ago as a likely inspiration for some flood narratives. These massive water releases reshaped landscapes and displaced early human communities, leaving behind impressions that likely evolved into oral traditions. Take, for example, the flooding of the Black Sea around 5600 BCE. This moment in time is one such event, often linked to flood myths in Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean. The catastrophic deluge of the Black Sea may have inspired stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh and even the tale of Noah's Ark. Similarly, the flooding of the Yellow River in ancient China and the Ganges in India likely shaped the myths and cultural practices of those regions. But beyond regional disasters, flood myths may also serve as cultural memory, a way of encoding historical trauma into narrative form. These stories are not just allegories, but records of how humans endured and interpreted natural calamities. By passing this knowledge along the generations, humanity enshrines these records into our very core, propelling the ageless wisdom for the world's citizens of tomorrow. Could climate change and rising sea levels give birth to new flood myths? As we witness the devastating effects of hurricanes, tsunamis, and rising oceans, we're living through events that echo the mythic floods of old. This time, however, we have abundant technology to tell the tale, at least for now. How will future generations interpret these events? Will our struggles with climate change, displacement, and resilience form the basis of new myths that explore humanity's relationship with nature and technology? Consider this. Whether the Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004, 2005's Hurricane Katrina, or the 2022 flooding in Pakistan, each of these recent events all hold elements of mythic narratives. They're catastrophic in the fact that they force communities to confront loss, adapt to change, and rebuild if any want to survive. In a way, we're creating modern flood stories in real time, stories that may be retold, reshaped, and mythologized by those who come after us. But what will that end up looking like is still anyone's guess. One thing flood myths often emphasize is the importance of balance between humanity and the divine, the environment, and our own moral actions. They warn of hubris, they teach us the value of preparedness, and remind us that even destruction can lead to renewal, a harsh reality for many. But they ask us profound questions. What would you do if everything you knew was wiped away? What would you choose to preserve? And what lessons would you carry forward? These ancient stories resonate deeply, not only because they reflect our past, but because they mirror the challenges we face today. Themes of destruction, survival, and renewal are as relevant now as they were millennia ago, connecting us to struggles both literal and symbolic, like climate change, social upheaval, and personal crises. Similar to the great floods of mythology, these challenges may seem overwhelming, yet they compel us to adapt, innovate, and rebuild. Recent events such as hurricanes displacing millions, rising sea levels threatening coastal communities, or even the metaphorical floods of misinformation and economic instability force us to confront these age-old questions. Are we like Noah or Manu, preparing to weather these storms? Or are we ignoring the warnings of the fish or the gods? Scientists and historians often see flood myths as cultural memories of real events. But what about the myths that we're creating today? As global temperatures rise and natural disasters grow more frequent, we must ask how future generations will frame this era. Will they remember us as survivors and rebuilders, or as those who failed to heed the warnings? Stories are powerful tools for survival. They help us process trauma, teach lessons, and if we're lucky, instill hope. Flood myths in particular carry a profound message. Even in the face of utter devastation, life can still endure and something new can emerge. Across the world's flood myths, a recurring motif stands out. A figure or group builds an ark, whether literal or metaphorical, to preserve life and culture. Today, our arcs might be technological innovations, social movements, or global agreements like the Paris Climate Accord. What we choose to protect and carry forward reflects our values as individuals and communities. The great flood myths remind us that water, while destructive, also nourishes and sustains life. We wouldn't be here without it. They're a testament to human resilience and our ability to find meaning in catastrophe. Whether viewed as allegories, history, or spiritual truths, flood myths often ripple through our shared consciousness, reminding us that even in overwhelming loss, there is always the potential for a new beginning. As you reflect on these myths, ask yourself, if your life were wiped clean by a flood, what would you rebuild? What would you save? These questions don't come with easy answers, and that's okay. What matters is that we ask them in the first place. I want to thank you for joining me on this exploration of the world's flood myths. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review where you found this podcast, and share Drinking in the Duat with your friends. As always, stay curious and keep seeking the deeper currents of our shared stories. Until next time, I'm M. Dylan Blair, signing off. And so another chapter comes to an end. But the stories don't just stop here. The myths, the legends, and the questions, they follow us, waiting to be uncovered, waiting to be understood. Thank you for joining us on the journey. If you've enjoyed exploring the depths of mythology, folklore, and the threads of belief that bind us, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the story with others. Until next time, remember, the answers lie not in the light or in the shadow, but in the spaces between. Keep asking questions, keep seeking meaning, and above all, keep the stories alive.